It's hard to believe you're so recently bald, I know, right? Kind of miss it, to be honest. It was very refreshing when you had the AC right above you. Hey, Palm Dad, how you doing? Peterson? Alright, next time's Peterson. Thank you, Smith Black, for the $100. Appreciate that. Today we're actually fulfilling the previous stream meter, theory meter. So we're doing Gentili's Doctrine of Fascism today. And it looks like, unfortunately, because this is an oligarchy, not a democracy, not an oligarchy, what the hell am I talking about? It's, lost the word. Plutocracy. Plutarchy, that's it. Plutarchy. Plutocracy. This is a plutocracy, not a democracy. The plebiscites are a lie. So, here's what will happen. Because that's the rule. They spend the full 100, they get dibs. That's how it works. So we're going to be continuing with Maps of Meaning tomorrow, before we get into the other stuff. And then... yeah, I guess we'll... better luck next time. I was hoping for gamification, personally, but alas. Well, we can put the theory bar away for now. I know, right? This thing here was probably the best decision I ever made. It's so dumb, but it seems to work. Theory meter. Okay. So, tomorrow we are doing Maps of Meaning for an hour and a half to... I'm bald? No, I'm not bald now. I've got hair right here. I was bald. Look at my videos from months ago. Alright. So we are doing Gentili's Doctrine of Fascism. And I apologize, my voice is a little bit hoarse. I accidentally inhaled some coffee right before stream, which is never fun. Okay, let's see here. Oh, I thought I had it in the playlist. Okay, I guess I'll have to download it again. Damn. Alright, we're just waiting for this to download. I was sure I had it. Hang on. So who's the, James Gregor. It's the editor. I wonder if I have it under fascism. Oh, sweet. Looks like I do. Okay, brilliant. But we have it attributed to, Benito Mussolini. Oh, wow, this is archaic looking. Oh, boy. Okay, this is what I had ready. I'm probably going to use the other one when it becomes available. But, like, look at this. Just look at this thing. This is like... Dear God. Kind of looks cool. It's kind of hard to read, though. I do kind of like how that looks, though. I'm not going to lie. Oh, but it has it attributed to Benito Mussolini. Benito Mussolini had this ghost written by Giovanni Gentili. As if Mussolini could write this. It's not long, but it is interesting, and it is dense. There's a misperception that Gentili is a Hegelian. Gentili takes a lot of the language of Hegel and of German idealists generally, but he... I wouldn't say he radically inverts Hegel, so much as he kind of cancels him out in a sort of underhanded way. He doesn't oppose Hegel in the way Marx does. He opposes Hegel in a way that's kind of insane. Okay, let's see if that download's working, because I don't think this is going to be readable. Yeah, I hate the 2-column pages too. This is going to be crazy difficult. So we're going to... There we go. Now we got it. Sweet. Save that to fascism. Okay. And this version should be better. Well, this is the genesis and structure of society. That's all I want... Here we go. That's what we're looking for. Sweet. Looks kind of like evil Matt McManus, doesn't he? You better point out all the striking similarities between this and the Communist Manifesto. Well, I mean, it's got a bright and colorful cover. It's written by the bad guys, so that's what it has in common with the Communist Manifesto. It hates freedom. Actually, that's kind of true, actually. That's not really true. It has a perverse understanding of freedom, though. God, I hate this font. I don't know what they're going for here. They're trying to make it look like, I don't know, wild and wacky or something. But that's not really the, it's not really the aesthetic you want to go for with this kind of material, in my humble opinion. This work is dedicated to Paulino Leon, who died in battle at the age of 18. Who is this? No idea. Oh, is he related to, Sergio Leone? That'd be weird if that was true. Anyways. Okay. Origins and Doctrine of Fascism. Are these, 43 pages long, really? That must be, or, because Origin is a separate document, I thought. I thought Origin of Fascism was a separate paper. Let's see. Here we go. Squadrism. That's a word. So are these combined documents then? What is this? I wonder if published under Gentili they're combined. And published under Mussolini they're not. That might make sense. Let's see here. So the other one. When in the now distant March of 1919. When in the now distant. Doesn't seem to like that. Okay, well, let's pick a good place to start. Okay. Let's see if we can't find a better edition. Maybe that'll be clearer. Because I have a feeling the Origins and Doctrine of Fascism might actually be a separate document. The page number is certainly shorter, because the Doctrine of Fascism is given here. It's like 11 pages. Granted, they're in columns, but... Let's start from the fascist state. Let's start from there. Oh, this is going to be rough. Like that stuff I inhaled is just not treating me kindly. Okay. Okay, let's go down to the political theory. Let's start there. I'm sure there's a lot of interest earlier on, but I want to see this. So when we go to, we'll start here. Section 9, the totalitarian character of the Doctrine of Fascism. That at least has the Doctrine of Fascism in the title. Now, I don't believe these are titles given by Gentili. I think these are titles given by the editor. I could be mistaken. But I quote, "The history of the Italian spiritual and political crisis and its solution was imminent in the concept of fascism. How the legislative and administrative actions of the revolutionary government dealt with that crisis is not the present object of the discussion. Rather, the present account is intended to illuminate the spirit which the government brought to its activities, which in 5 years profoundly transformed the nation's laws, orders, and institutions, thereby revealing the essence of fascism. It has already been said that before the complexity of the movement, nothing is more instructive for understanding it than, as we've already indicated, to consider Mazzini. His conception, this is an earlier fascist philosopher, his conception was a political conception, a conception of integral politics, a notion of politics which does not distinguish itself from morality, from religion, or from every conception of life that does not conceive itself distinct and abstracted from all other interests of the human spirit. In Mazzini, the political man is he who possesses a moral, religious, and philosophical doctrine. Should one endeavor to separate, in Mazzini's creed and in his propaganda, that which is merely political from that which is his religious, his ethical intuition, moral enjoyments, his metaphysical convictions, one can no longer account for the great historical importance of his belief system and his propaganda. One can no longer understand the reasons why Mazzini attracted so many to himself and proceeded to disturb the sleep of so many men of state and of the police. The analysis that does not always presuppose a unity at the base of Mazzini's thought does not lead to a clarification, but rather to a destruction of those ideas that exercise such historic consequences. It is evidence that human beings do not deal with life in slices, but rather as an indivisible unity. The first point, therefore, that must be established in a definition of fascism is the totalitarian character of its doctrine, which concerns itself not only with political order and direction of the nation, but with its will, thought, and sentiment. Now, one of the things that's going to come out here, as we go into thought and action, is that unlike German idealists who opposed mind to truth, and mind to the world, Gentili is going to essentially treat the world as if it itself has a kind of... I'm going to be botching this a little bit. This is not my expertise, but I'm going to attempt to give an explication of this. Gentili is going to say essentially that the world itself as such, as a realm of truth, sort of apart from human action, apart from human will, that is secondary. There's sort of a collapsing of sort of facts of the world and human action, so that the only kind of real philosophy, so to speak, that you can do is action. It's not the fact groundedness or the fact centeredness of are you heading out?
Yeah.
Okay, be safe, okay? It's not the fact centeredness of... One sec. It's not the fact centeredness of like an empirical approach to reality. Rather, the ultimate fact is the brute force of willing subjects. Eventually, the brute force of the state conceived as a subject. We'll get into this in a moment. He's going to clarify it more. And I should specify as well, I'm taking my reading of this not from a deep reading of fascist philosophy, but largely through secondary sources. So I'm going through this a little bit afresh with you. There's a really good summary, though, of what I'm discussing in Marcuse's Reason and Revolution, which is basically a history of Hegelian thinking and of Hegelia, of Hegel's philosophy. Ontology isn't your strong suit, P.S.? What do you mean? I mean, my education is in political science fundamentally. I'm self-taught philosophically mostly. I've taken a lot of philosophy courses. I've been in philosophy departments, probably more than I've been in political science departments, especially for the latter part of my degree. But my degree is in political science, so ultimately that's sort of where my research bent has been. That's been changing a lot in recent history. Over the past couple of years, I've definitely moved more towards philosophy than political science. But I'm just trying not to oversell my knowledge of this so I don't mislead you. Right? Take this with a grain of salt. I'm learning along with you. The second point. The doctrine of fascism, here we go, is not a philosophy in the ordinary sense of the term, and still less is it a religion. It is also not an explicated and definitive political doctrine. When he says it's not a religion, I believe he's referring to religion in the sense of Hegel. There's a description of it given in the introduction here that I think is somewhat pithy. I'm not a Hegel expert. I could not tell you if it's sufficient, but... Here. Hegel, this is by Terry Pinkard. By the way, the introduction to this version, I've read about 60% of the Phenomenology of Spirit before. The E.V. Miller translation, that's up here. We were going through it in the server a little while ago. I'm going through the Cambridge because I'm hoping for more clarity. The supplementary materials that I've been scanning it for a few days now is fantastic. The introduction in particular elucidates a lot. But I digress. Hegel takes religion to be one of the most basic ways in which Hegel takes religion to be one of the most basic ways in which self-conscious life tries to make sense of things, and in doing so, to make sense of itself. It is in religion that the infinite is first grasped, incompletely, as some kind of supersensible essence, as the real truth behind the semblances of the phenomenal world. Now, I have some issues with this in particular in that it essentializes a notion of religion that seems to rely upon the form of Christian religion, quote-unquote, in particular, for its grounding. But taking that as it is, that's what we should take Gentili to mean, roughly, I think, when he says the doctrine of fascism is still less than a philosophy, a religion. It is also not an explicated and definitive political doctrine articulated in a series of formulae. The truth is that the significance of fascism is not to be measured in the special theoretical or practical theses that it takes up at one or another time. As has been said at its very commencement, it did not arise with a precise and determinate program. Often, having settled on an immediate goal to be attained, a concept to be realized, a course to be followed, it has not hesitated, when put to the test, to change direction and reject as inadequate or violative of principle just that goal or that concept. Fascism sought not to bind the future. It has often announced reforms that were politically opportune, but the announcement itself did not bind the regime to their execution. The real commitments of the Duce, not the Deuce, apparently, are always those that are formulated and undertaken at one and the same time. Ergo, there is a principle of the absolute adaptability of the state to the world and to the situation. The state itself takes the role of the prince in Machiavelli, and it has to be able to sort of court fortuna in real time, so to speak. It is held to no law. Now, what you'll notice here is that there's a total collapsing of the relationship between the state and the people. The state is simply taken as a unity, and the public doesn't seem to actually exist. This is one of the ways in which fascism actually runs directly against Hegel, in which the self-consciousness of the state, the way in which you attain spirit, which is self-consciousness aware of itself as self-consciousness, is precisely because the state is a composite of citizens who understand their place with respect to each other and with respect to the state and treat each other as equals and as such, as self-consciousness. This is one of the reasons why he characterizes Greek democracy as a kind of true spirit. There's a whole bit where he talks about. I think he does this again in the Philosophy of Right. It's been a hot minute though. I can't quite remember. I think he references it, but he goes into the whole thing with Antigone. Antigone, the Sophoclean play in which. Oh, that's not relevant here. The point is, contrary to popular misconceptions and contrary to Gentili using Hegelian language, he is something radically different from Hegel. Yep, that's Bataille and homogeneity. Exactly. This is one of the reasons why you don't really talk about... This would be one of the reasons why Bataille doesn't really talk about Hegel all that much, despite talking about fascism, which explicitly references Hegel. Oh, it's finally cool enough to drink. I'm not suffering anymore. Okay. For that reason, Mussolini has always considered himself a tempest. That is to say, a person who undertakes a solution and acts at that proper moment in which action finds all the conditions and reasons mature that render the action possible and opportune. Oh, those Italians. Fascism draws out the Mazzinian truth, thought and action, its most rigorous significance, identifying the two terms in order to have them perfectly coincide. No longer to attribute any value to thought that is not translated or expressed in action. By the way, I don't know if you've noticed this. We were laughing at Surfside Otaku earlier because he was publishing his bookshelf, which is, with a few exceptions, embarrassing. But he had a picture of the... let me pop it on the screen, actually. It's funny. Hang on. I will attempt very hard to not be breathing heavily this entire time. I guarantee you it's not just because I'm so excited by fascism. The airways are very irritated tonight. Here we go. Yeah, so look at this. Can I pop this into this tab? No, that's fine. Okay, so I'll just make that bigger. And I'll just go... There we go. Look at this. Okay. Dev says, it's Short Fighter Taku, these two make good companion pieces as they are short-form explanations of the two big anti-liberal philosophies of the modern era. You will also find that they have much in common despite how much they both scream and cry they are totally opposites. They not only have nothing in common, they are literally the opposites of each other. The Communist Manifesto is about the emerging self-consciousness of self-conscious individuals who are part of a class and work together to build a better future of equality. Giovanni Gentili's doctrine of fascism dissolves differences entirely, not in actuality, not by creating equality, not by breaking down the exploitation inherent in the class divisions of capitalism, but by submerging them all into the will and action of a state which is accountable to nobody, not even to itself. These are so radically opposite from each other, they're not even on the same planet. It's crazy. And moreover, their influences are radically different. Karl Marx is actually, in a serious way, significantly more Hegelian than Giovanni Gentili is. Giovanni Gentili simply abides by Hegel's language, but he perverts it in a pretty radical way insofar as we're taking it as sort of doctrinal. Well, I got too many tabs open. Let's close these. Boom, 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 boom. Okay. Fascism draws out the Mazzinian truth. Thought and action, its most rigorous significance, identifying the two terms in order to have them perfectly coincide, no longer to attribute any value to thought that is not translated or expressed in action. That is the source of all the expressions of anti-intellectualist polemics that constitutes one of fascism's most recurrent themes. It is a polemic that is eminently Mazzinian because intellectualism, quote-unquote, as intellectualism is understood by fascists, divorces thought from action, science from life, the brain from the heart, and theory from practice. It is the posture of the talker and the skeptic, of the person who entrenches himself behind the maxim that it is one thing to say something and another thing to do it. It is the utopian who is the fabricator of systems that will never face concrete reality. It is the talk of the poet, the scientist, the philosopher who confine themselves to fantasy and to speculation and are ill-disposed to look around themselves and see the earth on which they tread and on which are to be found those fundamental human interests that feed their very fantasy and intelligence. Intellectuals are all those who represent that old Italy. They were the enemy of Mazzini's heated preachments. So the fascist state is not even accountable to the Duce. He is the head, but he is not in control. Sort of. I think it's better to think of it this way. The Duce is the head, and he is the state, right? It's a more robust and I would say nasty version of what Louis said when he said, "I am the state." Anti-intellectualism does not mean, as some ignorant fascists seem to believe, that they are authorized by the Duce to dismiss science and philosophy. It does not mean that one denies the value of thought and those superior expressions of culture through which thought expresses itself. Spiritual reality is a synthesis, in whose unity one finds expression and value in that thought that is action. In the conclusive unity of that synthesis, synthesis converge and must converge, and know that they converge, many elements without which the synthesis would be empty, operating in a void. Among these elements are all the forms of spiritual activity which share in the same value which is that of the synthesis. All the elements of the synthesis are essential. One does not rout armies that threaten the fatherland with trigonometry. But without trigonometry, one cannot target artillery. Anti-intellectualism is directed against those human beings who exhaust their spiritual life in an abstract and remote intellectual activity, far from that reality in which everyone should realize that human existence is rooted. Boy, I'm really excited for that fisherman's friend to get back here. Anti-intellectualism is opposed to those postures that are sometimes assumed that miss superior, more concrete, more humane alternatives. Anti-intellectualism is opposed to those postures that are sometimes assumed that miss superior, more concrete, more humane alternatives. It was an awkwardly written sentence. The adversary that first of all is to be defeated is that adversary found among those that are mentally, morally, and historically typical of that cultivated Italian class that have been identified for centuries as literati. That would include not only authors and cultivators of literature, but every writer, even those writing about science and philosophy, even those who would occupy themselves with liberal studies, that is to say, even those interested and non-professional academics who are erudite. Yes, damn those academics who are erudite. Scholars who would not involve themselves in politics and real matters. Those who would not involve themselves in the practical world of psychometrics. Such persons are the bastard product of our Risorgimento. The word of the day is Risorgimento. Risorgimento, inspired by the realities of the new economic and political forces at work, it is a 19th century movement for Italian unification. Alright then. Such persons are the bastard product of our Risorgimento, whom fascists justly consider bad citizens, the products of a growth which fascists seek to extirpate. Such an anti-intellectualism does not imply a hostility to culture, but a hostility to a decadent culture. Exactly, the infinite left. Not exactly, but yeah. It is hostile to that culture that does not educate, and which does not make, but rather unmakes, the person, rendering him a pedant, an intellectual aesthete. The person is rendered an egoist, a man morally and therefore politically indifferent, one who considers himself superior to the fray, even when the struggle involves his fatherland, even when interests that should win because their triumph signals the victory of his own and the defeat of enemies. Human beings make progress by dividing themselves through victory in battle, and then the success of the one above the other. Woe to those who do not participate in the service of either side and fail to commit themselves, remaining aloof, conceiving duty to be that of a spectator, awaiting an outcome and taking advantage of it, at the close of a conflict, waiting to partake of the fruits of the victor. The intellectualist sees the summit of wisdom in achieving that state of apathy in which one can consider the pros and cons of everything, extinguishing every passion, finding a place where he might watch with security those who suffer and die. But that is the Epicurean ideal. All of human history opposes itself to that kind of Epicureanism. Human history, heavy with everything we hold dear, in which and for which we live, is strewn with trials. Risorgimento means rising again. Seriously, though, this is so obviously far away from Marx. Yeah, but of course it is. But you think a dipshit like Short Fat Otaku is going to read? Please. Do you think he'd even understand what he was reading? He just reads somebody speaking in a strident tone and he assumes it's the same thing. So this is an interesting sentence. And there actually is a strong... This is itself very close to both Hegel and Nietzsche, actually. But we'll go with Hegel. Hegel critiques the Stoics as attempting to... How do I want to put this? Attempting to subject themselves to a higher law beyond that of human beings, that of nature, so to speak, in order to sort of transcend the injustices and vicissitudes of worldly human life. But they end up alone without any hope of justice, and they end up in what Hegel calls an unhappy state of consciousness. They're miserable. They are Socrates unsatisfied, and unsatisfied is not flourishing, right? Moreover, they aren't in society with other human beings. They've alienated themselves from other human beings as essentially a monumental cope. I'm going to read from the introduction of the Phenomenology again, because Terry Pinkard puts it really well. Quote, "The Stoic seeks the essence of appearance in his or her own thought as answering to a higher essence, the reason of the cosmos. Whereas the skeptic turns reason against itself to assert his own freedom." There's no her skeptic, apparently. But as soon as we reach the skeptic part, Terry Pinkard has a dim view of the sexism of skeptics, I suppose. Probably not unjustified. But I digress. The skeptic turns reason against itself, by contrast, to assert his own freedom from everything. Neither works, and is followed by a section on what Hegel calls the unhappy consciousness, itself the outcome of the failed aims of self-sufficiency through mastery and the failures of both Stoicism and skepticism to achieve freedom. Hegel seems there to be discussing the religions of late antiquity and early medieval Christianity as despairing attempts at getting a grip on the unchanging essence behind the flow of appearance, only to finally come to terms with it by understanding their own role and activity in the process. So, it's, maybe to put it in simpler terms, that's going to lose it, but I think it kind of helps make sense of it a little bit. Trying to find your fulfillment in the laws of the cosmos that can never be actualized in human affairs is sort of self-defeating in its concept, even. Like, you're admitting failure at the outset. Also, Bataille got really into Hegel only when Kojève visited France. Really? That's interesting. Moving on. Because of its repugnance to that kind of intellectualism, fascism is not enamored of tarrying in the making of abstract theories, not because it does not allow the making of theory, but because it does not expect theory to serve as a major force for the reform or the promotion of Italian culture and life. This is about as anti-Marxist as you can get, in every conceivable way. First of all, Marx does not seek the promotion of a, let's say, a fetishized nation's culture and life. He seeks its dissolution in favor of something new in order for room for actual freedom and equality, which is a condition of real freedom in this sense, given that the inequality itself is based upon exploitation. We're not talking about the inequality between races in Mass Effect, where, oh, it's unfair that humans only live this long and Azari get to all look like hot chicks and have mind powers. We're talking about a distinction that is entirely based upon a forced relationship between two parties, one of which does not have a choice in the matter, really. That's not going to be Marx. Secondly, Marx is very explicit. Theory is itself a major force. Theory is itself, once it becomes motivating, once it serves as a once it gives rise to class consciousness and class action, it is a material force. It is a weapon. That's his language specifically. I believe you find that in, actually, the Jewish question again. Not the Jewish question. I need to be careful about that. It's on the Jewish question. He's responding to an essay by Bruno Bauer called The Jewish Question. Let me find it. This is something that this is something that Zanzi actually quotes in his video Final Fantasy and Ideology, which is really good, by the way. Really, really good. I think it's in here. Bear with me. Come on, where are you? Thought I marked it down. Could I be mistaken? Could it be from, I wonder if it's actually... I was certain it was in here. Ah, here we are. You know what it was? I was looking for the language from Zanzi's video. He has a different translation. This is from, oh, this is, yeah, I was incorrect. This is from the contribution to the critique of the, of Hegel's philosophy of right. I've actually gone right out of the, on the Jewish question. I didn't even see it. Quote. So this is from the Marx Engels reader. It is clear that the arm of criticism cannot replace the criticism of arms. Material force can only be overthrown by material force. But theory itself becomes a material force when it has seized the masses. Theory is capable of seizing the masses when it demonstrates ad hominem, and it demonstrates ad hominem as soon as it becomes radical. To be radical is to grasp things by the root. But for man, the root is man himself. What proves beyond doubt the radicalism of German theory, and thus its practical energy, is that it begins from the resolute positive abolition of religion. The criticism of religion ends with the doctrine that man is the supreme being for man. It ends, therefore, with the categorical imperative to overthrow all those conditions in which man is an abased, enslaved, abandoned, contemptible being. Conditions which can hardly be better described than the exclamation of a Frenchman on the occasion of a proposed tax upon dogs. Wretched dogs, they want to treat you like men. Even from the historical standpoint, theoretical emancipation has a specific practical importance for Germany. In fact, Germany's revolutionary past is theoretical. It is the Reformation. In that period, the revolution originated in the brain of a monk, today in the brain of a philosopher. So you see how radically distinct these two positions are. Marx is super pro-intellectualist. He's against the fetishization of ideas, but he's entirely his approach to history is one that is while his ontology, I suppose you could say, is not led by ideas, absolutely, your ability to act with freedom in the world is entirely contingent upon knowledge and self-consciousness, which involves theory. It involves reasoning through things. Ad hominem means against a man. They don't mean... So when we say ad hominem in YouTube speak, we're using that as a shorthand for an ad hominem fallacy. So in an argument, if I substitute a counter to your argument with an insult against your person, that's a fallacy, because I'm not actually attacking your argument. Your argument is not rendered untrue or rebutted by my attacking your person. However, if I refute your argument and then punch you, my argument is not therefore fallacious, even though I have very much acted in an ad hominem way. Make sense? Have a good night, Robin Page. Thanks for joining us tonight. Why do so many people misinterpret on the Jewish question as being anti-Semitic? Probably because it quotes liberally from an actually anti-Semitic tract. And to be clear, like, there is language in on the Jewish question that is very easily taken in that way. I think that's a misread personally, but you're in very difficult territory, and frankly, it's just not really worth the hassle at the end of the day. On the other hand, when it is said that fascism is not a system or a doctrine, one must not imagine that fascism is empty of reason, is blind practice, or a method that is indefinable or instinctive. Rather, if one defines as system or philosophy something alive, as a principle of universal character in its very development, a principle capable of revealing, as it develops literally day by day, its creativity together with the results and consequences of which it is capable, fascism is a perfect system, with a most steadfast principle possessed of a rigorous logic of development. The Duce himself, together with the most humble member of the party, this is important language. The Duce himself, together with the most humble member of the party, recognizing the truth and the vitality of that principle, labor for its development, now moving with security along the direct route to the goal, and at other times making and unmaking, now moving forward, and at other times returning to the beginning, out of commitment to the logic of development because some effort revealed itself as failing to accord with principle. In that sense, as an open system, dynamically capable of development, there is philosophy in every great body of thought, be it a political or social revolution, or a religious reform, or as a moral or critical literary movement. In this sense, the thought of Mazzini is a philosophy, as is the thought of Manzoni, as is that of Pascal, as well as Goethe, Leopardi, and as is the thought of Byron or Shelley. None of these belong to the proper history of philosophy, but each belongs to a philosophical current, and they reject all that which deviates or contradicts it. I actually wonder if that's true, given the influence of people, for example, Pascal obviously wrote philosophy. I have actually a rather gorgeous copy of the Pensees in leather. I'm quite pleased with this. But I digress. What on earth did I just drop on the ground? What fell? Where are you? I think that's a Kinder Egg from Avatar. What am I saying? Goethe, philosophy, yes. Given people like Goethe's influence, like philosophical influence on people like Hegel, I don't think that's necessarily fair. Pascal obviously wrote actual philosophy, so I don't know if there's like a dig here that I'm missing. But I also don't think, for example, that writing a narrative or poetry necessarily precludes you from doing philosophy. If that were the case, then Plato would have to be written out, wouldn't he? Because he didn't fundamentally write philosophical treatises. He wrote narratives. He wrote essentially a form of play or novel. Like, that's how you read them. That's what a dialogue is. I know, right? That is pretty. But it's not as pretty as this one. Same publisher. By the way, like, it's crazy how not expensive these are. Maybe they won't be forever. This book's older than me, so this is honestly my favorite book that I own. Just in terms of how it feels and its construction. But look at this thing. This is here. Let me get bigger for you, so you can see this, because this thing is gorgeous. This is John Milton's Paradise Lost in leather, published by Franklin Library. And these are not expensive. These are mass-produced, but they are extremely well made. And like, look at this. Open this up. Oh. That is like a fabric, that front cover. And it's like, the pages are thick. This thing could have been printed yesterday, but it's like, it feels and looks new. Look at this. Just, ugh, gorgeous. Anyways. Unfortunately, when you take this stuff seriously, it's very hard to get stuff that's not originally in English in a good edition in fine binding, so you kind of have to settle for, like, paperbacks, although Cambridge does a decent job with their paper quality and their binding. Although they've declined in recent years, even their paperbacks used to have sewn bindings, and now they're glued, and they've gotten thinner and flimsier as time has gone on. Hackett, oddly enough, has actually improved their quality over time. And so between the two of them, in terms of their binding, I actually prefer Hackett to Cambridge lately. But they're both solid. Oh, once again, though, like, academic copies of text have a tendency to be utilitarian. For how much they charge for them, they really ought to be in cloth or something, because, like, this thing is still, despite being a stack of paper, easily costs, like, $50. So it's like, come on, you know? Like, at least sew it. Oh, you just started Paradise Lost this weekend? Paradise Lost is a trip. Satan has guns. Is Paradise Lost a poem? It's an epic poem. It's really good, actually. I recommend it. Paradise Lost is a fiction? I wouldn't say it's a fiction. I mean, like, the events didn't take place, obviously, but, like, he's not specifically telling you a story. He's doing something a bit more specific than that. They charge that much because it's monopolized? Yeah, I know. Although with Terry Pinkard, it's interesting. So apparently, I was reading about this. So this is the newest English translation of the Phenomenology of Spirit. It's still very young. I think it's only been around for like 10 years. But it's swiftly becoming the new standard, and for good reason, judging by, like, from what I've read inside of it. It's eminently more clear, in my opinion, than the A.V. Miller, judging from what I've seen. Granted, when I read the A.V. Miller, solid half of it, that was a while ago. So it may have been, like, deficiencies on my end that couldn't rate the difference. But Pinkard actually originally had this for free online. And if you look online, you look for, like, best translation of Hegel, or of Hegel's Phenomenology of Spirit, and you look onto Reddit, you'll find people still linking to the website. It's a dead link now. But you could, at one point, get access to all of this for free. Which you still can, by the way, thanks to LibGen, but before you could get it for free legally. The Divine Commedia is divine? Well, the illustrated Everyman's Library edition in cloth certainly is. Look at that. Ooh. I'm not super fond of the illustrations in this version, though, to be honest. They're very, I like Gustave Doré. I wish they had those ones. It's technically a draft translation, if I remember correctly. Yeah, makes sense. You want pictures on the cover? Why? I'm not a fan of pictures on the cover. Like, sometimes they can be okay, but if you're going for, like, a fine bind, I would rather just elegant and plain. Like, you know what I like? Where is it? Oh, here we go. Like, you want to know what a nice hardcover looks like? This is the, what year is this from? Damn, 1955. This is the 1955 hardcover of Herbert Marcuse's Reason and Revolution. And this is, it's a little bit old. It's actually in remarkably good condition. You wouldn't be able to tell. But its materials are cheaper than what I just showed you. But like this, see that? That looks elegant on a shelf. It looks serious. It doesn't look like, what page are we on? Does it even say? Oh, damn. Okay, whatever. 24. Okay. It doesn't look like this frickin' thing. Like, that's hideous. I'm sorry. Like, look, you got, like, this weird cartoonish font. These awful bright colors. I guess that's supposed to be the Italian flag. This photo of the guy there just sort of superimposed. I don't like that at all. That is just hideous. You'll never catch a plain bind looking at you out of the corner of your eye. That's true, but I buy my books from Amazon these days, so and nothing is catching me out of the corner of my eye. I'm looking for everything before I see it. It's very rare that I see a book and buy it anymore these days, because I'm usually aware of most of them in advance. Typically, it'll be stuff like this. Like this caught my eye, and I'm really glad it did. This is The Mountain in the Sea by Ray Naylor. By the way, if you haven't read this, this is the best sci-fi I've read in a long time. This is so good. So good. The Mountain in the Sea by Ray Naylor. Oh, thank God the medication has arrived. Some of those 1890s books with illustrated covers are really pretty. I agree. There are some, like, look. This is, like, utilitarian enough that I can kind of forgive it. But look, like, I would rather just not have Hegel's name on here. Just have the title. Have the title. Like, if you're going to go utilitarian, go utilitarian. I don't need a picture of Monster Mash here. You know? You're reading the new Ann Leckie. What does Ann Leckie write? Let's see. I have not heard of Ann Leckie. Let's see. Let's see. Oh, the Ancillary Justice. That's her. Okay. I've heard of Ancillary Justice. I haven't read them, though. I mean, it's interesting. Phenomenology of Spirit has been compared to Dante's and Dante's Inferno in the past, or Divine Comedy, I guess. I think for Cambridge, this is just a standardized formula with the black and white portrait on the cover. It is, although not black and white specifically, because their copy of the Cambridge editions of Kant has a color photo of Kant on the front. It's just Hegel who, for some reason, gets the black and white treatment. Maybe this is because this is printed later. I'm not entirely sure. But like look, covers with art can look fantastic. Like the Penguin edition of Capital looks great. I love that. That's fantastic. That's vivid. Like that captures your eye in an interesting way, and it's thematically appropriate. Here, what are some other covers? Like, see, this is a utilitarian cover. This is what I'm talking about. This is inoffensive. Personally, I would have rather them go that route with this, but that's just me. I think another way to go, this is Carl Schmitt's Constitutional Theory. I really like how this one looks. This one feels really good, too. And this one's not sewn, but I think one of his other ones I have is sewn. And then last one, before we move on. I have Slowly working through this. I have Spinoza's Complete Works. This is another one to go. I'm not fond of this one. Not because, like, it's ugly, but because I hate when they can't decide if the dust jacket is disposable or a part of the product. Because if you look at this, it's like, that's a nice cover. It's a nice, elegant, simple, minimalistic cover. But then on the back we have a giant barcode printed on it. And it's just like, and not only that, but unlike a lot of dust jackets which have like a bit of, like, they've got like a plastic layer on them, so they have some like durability. This has the plastic on the inside, which is odd, because it's like it's protecting it from the book. I'm sure there's a function to this, like maybe it keeps dust from traveling in, which would be useful because cloth has a tendency to collect mold in humid spaces. But I don't know, like, I would have rather them just not use cloth, you know, use something that has it's a little bit easier to keep clean. Oh, bless you. Thank you so much. You didn't get any Fisherman's Friend, did you? Where?
That stuff's the same stuff.
Yeah, but it's milder. Okay, whatever. Thank you. Fine, I'll use this stuff. Okay. Can you blast the AC for me? It's very warm. Alright. Scuttle these back to where they're supposed to be. Okay, we've digressed on books enough, I think. There we go. All right. Okay. Last paragraph. None of these belong to the proper history of philosophy, but each belongs to a philosophical current, and they reject all that which deviates or contradicts it. If one fails to understand this, one could not identify or evaluate fascism. One might consider fascism a method more than a philosophical system, because in ordinary language the term system is understood to mean a developed doctrine containing theories fixed in propositions or theorems to which nothing can be added and nothing subtracted. Nothing could be more alien to fascism than those philosophical religious doctrines which implicitly entail the rise of a school or sect with adepts and heretics. Just to recapitulate what I was saying before, there is, in theory, a collapse of classes in fascist thought, but it's not a collapse that results from everybody leaving a situation of mutual exploitation and becoming free, equal partners in a state, a la Hegel, or free and equal neighbors in a dispersed non-state system in which workers themselves own democratically the means of production, as in Marx. It's just where they become simply submerged in the state. The state becomes the individual subject, almost in the sense of a liberal subject. And the individual with the Duce, both together, just cease to have any individuality at all, because ultimately the only thing that is real is what can be enacted in the world through will and action. And so there's a perverse glorification of the misery of the world in an attempt to arrest all of the violence and horror in it as a condition of action. So fascism becomes not a revolutionary doctrine, but a doctrine aiming at arresting a particular intensification of a system of violence in order to make real the struggle of an imperial state, essentially. You are a quirked up white guy Sunday, and I love it. I'll take that in as positive spirit as I can imagine. The Hegel cover works because if I keep it out on my desk, I have to push myself and ask, am I going to read from this or just let him keep staring at me, huh? POS compared to DC how? What? Phenomenology of spirit compared to the Divine Comedy? I think in terms of the way it traverses in sort of a descending or ascending fashion, like the development of consciousness. I think that it's sort of metaphorized that way. I swear to God, if one more person tells me the Discord link is invalid. Well, the January 6ers want a fascist revolution. No, the January 6ers, if they got their way, would get a fascist revolution. They're too stupid to want a fascist revolution. They don't even know what that is. What they want is an insurrection. A revolution is not a mere insurrection. The whole idea behind a revolution is that you've actually upended the old way of things. And, therefore, you've instituted, like, a new state of affairs. They're just conservatives. They're just conservatives, and they're rather dumb ones. They have no idea what they were doing. It was still dangerous, deeply dangerous. They would have undermined the democracy. They could have, like, even if they only managed to, like, physically harm one sitting member of government, that's a decision that has been robbed from the people. That is democracy itself being directly usurped. So, certainly threatened in any case. So it's one of those things, like, did it pose a tangible threat to the democracy? It's debatable, materially, whether they would have actually achieved anything. But it absolutely was an attempt to do so. And, I mean, it's distinctly possible that they could have. Like, there were important people in that building. Important people that if the wrong people got their hands on them, and it seems like people were prepared to do serious harm to people there, we would be in a very different world right now, potentially. So. Wait, how is Dante's comedy about consciousness? No. I'm saying that the movement of Hegel's phenomenology is compared to the movement of Dante in the Divine Comedy. Dante's Divine Comedy isn't about consciousness. I mean, maybe it is. I'll have to think about that. It's been a while. I read a lot of this stuff years and years ago, and you lose some of it. Alright, well, I think that's been a solid hour of the doctrine of fascism. Let's finish this with this section here. The center of the system. This is a short chapter. Actually, how long is the doctrine of the state? Do we want to finish this? You know what? We can finish this. It's only 3 more pages. The third point. Can you pass me the red cardigan? The red one there? Yes, thank you. I need better temperature control. Ah, that's better. Third point. The fascist system is not a system, but has in politics, and in the interest of politics, its center of gravity. Born as a conception of the state, intended to resolve the political problems exacerbated in Italy by the release of the passions of the unthinking masses of the post-World War I period, fascism took the field as a political method. But in the act of confronting and resolving political problems, fascism, in accordance with its very nature, by its very method, proposed for itself moral, religious, and philosophical problems, and in so doing, developed and demonstrated its specific totalitarian character. That provided the occasion for putting the political form of its principle to the fore. In manifesting that principle, fascism revealed its specific content, without immediately revealing its ideal origins in a more profound intuition of life, from which the political principle arises. This allows us to outline a rapid synthesis of the political doctrine of fascism, which does not exhaust its content, but which constitutes that part, or better, that preeminent and generally most interesting expression. And now we get to the fascist doctrine of the state, and this is where we'll leave off. Fascist politics turns entirely on the concept of the national state. And here, by the way, is the principal distinction between Marx and any fascist. Marx seeks the dissolution of the state. The state, especially under capitalism, presumes class exploitation. It presumes the fetishization of the nation, of the state, etc., of the political itself, of an entrenchment of a conservative attitude towards specific philosophical doctrines aimed towards the preservation of the state as opposed to the liberating of classes. The fact that fascist politics turns entirely on the concept of the national state puts it at direct odds. Direct odds, not direct odds. These aren't odds. This is an embrace. Direct odds. So, like, the idea that the Communist Manifesto and the doctrine of fascism are the same, have any similarity, in fact, is laughable. It's like, it's like comparing Descartes to Rorty. They're directly contrary to each other. They refute each other, in fact. They defy each other's presumptions and goals. They're as opposite as you can get. That's brown? No, this is burgundy. This is not brown. Thank you very much. I have a brown cardigan. I've worn it on stream before. It's in the other room. And that one's, like, way too thick for winter, for fall. But I digress. Fascist politics turns entirely on the concept of the national state. A concept which has many points of contact with the doctrine of nationalism. So many points, in fact, that it permitted the fusion of the Nationalist Party with that of fascism in a single program. Nonetheless, the fascist concept has its proper character that cannot be overlooked. Without recognizing that, one would neglect that which is peculiar and characteristic of fascism. Comparisons are never very generous. Still less the one here proposed. Nonetheless, the effort will be undertaken to bring to light the essence of fascism. Both nationalism and fascism place the state at the very foundation of every individual value and right. For both, the state is not a consequence, but a beginning. The relationship between the individual and the state proposed by nationalism was the direct antithesis of that advanced by individualistic liberalism and socialism. For nationalists, the state is conceived as prior to the individual. For liberals and socialists, on the other hand, the individual is understood to be something that precedes the state, who finds in the state something external, something that limits and controls, that suppresses liberty, and that condemns him to those circumstances into which he is born, circumstances within which he must live and die. For fascism, on the other hand, the state and the individual are one. Or better, perhaps, state and individual are terms that are inseparable in a necessary synthesis. Nationalism, in fact, bases the state on the concept of the nation, an entity that transcends the will and the personality of the individual because it is conceived as objectively pre-existent, independent of the consciousness of individuals. Individuals do not labor to create it. The nation of nationalists is something that exists not because of spiritual activity, but as an empirical fact and a datum of nature. The constituent elements that make up the nation are territory or ethnicity. This is actually false. If you want to watch my video, against nationalism. Sorry, I have like several titles for it because I've recut it several times. My long video against nationalism. What I go into is how the border itself is produced. The territory is produced, in a sense, by the registering of ethnicity as a condition of migration within the British Empire in particular. The constituent elements that make up the nation are territory or ethnicity. Actually, these are identical, as I've very loosely indicated. All of the same extrinsic nature, even when they are human in origin, like language, religion, or history. That is because those human elements that combine to create national individuality pre-exist, and the individual finds them already in existence until he initiates that moral activity that engages and develops them. Much the same can be said of territory and ethnicity. Naturalism is the disability that attends the tendentially spiritualistic thrust of nationalism and makes of it something inflexible, illiberal, retrograde, and crudely conservative. Its least sympathetic element. Before fascism, with which it was later to assimilate and amalgamate, that flaw made it suspicious and repugnant even to those who politically sympathized with most of its postulates. On the other hand, do I have any more liquid in here? Yes. On the other hand, where was I? I lost my spot. On the other hand, it attracted certain mystico-religious attachments that proved to be one of the most effective reasons for the enthusiastic adherence to nationalist idealism by the youth of Italy and those intellectuals not given to political reflection. One of the special and conspicuous reflections of naturalism was the monarchical loyalty of the nationalists. The monarchy was a presupposition for them. The Italian state had been born with its monarchy, and by virtue of that, the historic basis that today constitutes Italian nationality includes the monarchy. It is a history that intimately and indissolubly binds a people together. There are the Alps and the Apennines. There is Sicily and Dalmatia. There is the undertaking of the Thousand of Garibaldi. There is the House of Savoy. With the subtraction of any of these elements, one would no longer have the nation. To agree with that, as one must, is to consent to those elements, to feel them as inseparable from the very personality of being Italian. For the nationalists, it is not consciousness, recognizing and feeling the tie or rapport that creates and confers upon them the moral value and the obligation they are due, but it is the natural or historical connection and rapport that pre-exists that determines the appropriate consciousness. That consciousness is virtually the product of those pre-existing natural elements. When fascism sought its own path, on the other hand, it was acutely aware of the tedium and dissatisfaction with the actual political state of the Italian nation. Fascism was not capable of persuading itself that the monarchy could, with a vigorous effort, energetically react to restore the nation to that path clearly designated by the generous sacrifices of the war and by the victory honorably concluded. Fascism could not imagine what roots that monarchy could have and maintain in the reality that was the Italy of Vittorio Veneto. For that reason, fascism did not hesitate to frankly confess a republican tendency. Later, when Vittorio Emanuele refused to invoke that state of siege proposed by the last prime minister of the old regime against the fascist march on Rome, and chose to resolve the crisis between the old and the new Italy, as in 1915, by assigning power to the new Italy, resolutely violating the customary norms of the parliamentarism responsible for the grave crisis, that anti-monarchical disposition did not impede Mussolini from taking an oath of fealty to the king, thereby breaking definitively, sincerely, and logically from republicanism. That signified that fascism, unlike nationalism, saw in the monarchy not in the past to be respected as an historic fact, but as something alive in the soul, a future to which the spirit turns as to a proper ideal, an ideal that addresses our aspirations, our needs, our nature. The monarchy, as with all determinations of the state, as the state, is not something delivered to us by history. Neither is it outside of us. The state is within us, mature, alive, and of necessity living and growing and expanding and elevating itself in dignity, and conscious of itself and of its high duties and the grand goals to which it is called. In our will, in our thought, and in our passions, the individual develops and the state develops. The character of the individual consolidates itself, and with that character, the structure, the force, and the efficacy of the state consolidates itself. Italy's seas, coasts, and mountains seem to acquire more cohesion and integrity, as though they were ideas and sentiments. Everything in nature can be divided and disaggregated if it pleases us, or at least does not displease us. And everything can be rendered one and indivisible if we feel that unity to be necessary. Past history, with its memories and traditions, with its vanity and its titles to glory, is reconstituted and finds a place through our interested and fervid spiritual reinvocation. It is the spirit which makes them its own, to support and defend them with its adhesion and vigilant consciousness. The language of our fathers is enjoyed and appropriated, and it revives, being studiously taken in and savored with all its expressive qualities. It had seemed as though all that had pre-existed an hereditary legacy, but in fact it is transfigured in our own personal conquest and in a continuous creation that would vanish if we failed to understand that we, and that we does not refer to you and me, that we refers to the aggregate in which we have disappeared, are its author. So, yeah. That's kind of messed up, isn't it? But it's interesting. It's definitely, it's more interesting than frickin' James Lindsay, that's for sure. Oh, I needed that so badly. Have a good night, Isarith. Alright. We're on to the next segment. We've done our theory for today, and our theory for tomorrow is paid for. So when we do the theory meter tonight, we're going to be a little bit behind. So I'm going to put up the theory meter tonight. It has already been filled by Smith Black, I believe. Yes, it has. We are doing Peterson Maps of Meaning tomorrow. And so we're going to treat that one as being off of the poll. Which means, depending on where we're at tomorrow... no, we're going to do gamification, I think. Gamification is winning pretty radically. If that theory meter fills again, then we will skip the next non-theory segment and go straight to that. Did you miss the theory section for today? Yes, you did. We just finished, alas. It was a good one, though. At least I think it went rather well. This Hegel and Marx prep is paying dividends. Okay. Apropos what we were just talking about. This is a little bit high. Let's lower that a little bit. Apropos what we were just talking about. We are going to review the debate between Vosh and Big Papa Fascist, Andrew from the Crucible, on Christian nationalism. I was hoping that we would have Eudaimonia here to go over it with us, because it would be interesting to have that kind of counterbalance, but I think he's flying for his job, so I think he's indisposed at the moment. But we shall not forgive him anyways. He was weak. Alright, I'm going to go to the washroom quickly, and then we're going to get to the next segment. I'll see you guys in a minute. Sauce. I was wrong. We are not doing BPF versus Vosh. That's tomorrow night. Tonight we are doing the Revolution will not be live streamed. I forgot the title of my own stream. Sorry, my calendar's way off. I have to actually start writing this down. That would be the smart thing to do, not hold it all in my head. I've been having some luck doing that so far, but it's getting too busy for it. Tonight we are doing the Revolution will not be live streamed by Sisyphus55. Thank you, Naomi, for reminding me. Okay, now I'll be right back. look at this stupid thing. Look at this thumbnail. Like, Vosh and Hassan, the revolution will not be live streamed. Sponsored by Brilliant. Sorry if I'm being, like, unduly pessimistic here, but I have that feeling I'm gonna hate this. I'm gonna hate everything about this. I have that feeling that this is gonna suck. I'm gonna find this incredibly annoying, and that this is gonna be one of those things that makes channels like mine look bad, and I don't like that. But we'll see. Maybe it'll have something to say. But, like, no kidding. No kidding, there's not going to be a revolution as a result of YouTube. Obviously. Okay, let's see what the description is of this. We have an ad for Brilliant. We have merch. We have a Patron. What are we... Oh, no. Oh, no, my dude. No, you can't... Okay. I'm looking at sources here. I know some of these. I don't know this one. I've never heard of Taiwo. Maybe they're good. But a rent on Revolution I have. By the way. The Penguin Classics edition. I don't know if this is true for the Viking Press one. But the Penguin Classics edition of Hannah Rents on Revolution has a secret. Has a secret. Let's see, have I saved it? Let's see. I used to have a deep, abiding respect for rent, and that has changed in recent years. But let me see if I can't find it. This is a hell of a typo. Actually, I suppose I could find it on Google Books really fast. Hang on. Ah, yes. Okay, look at this. Hang on. $2.54. So I think it should be on the same page here. I'll just bring it up on screen, okay? You guys are going to appreciate this. You have no idea. So, this is Hannah Rents on Revolution, okay? This is one of those special little secrets that nobody knows about. On Revolution has an interesting typo, in which she writes, and I quote, "Hence, according to Jefferson, it was the very principle of Republican government to demand the subdivision of the counties into wards, namely the creation of small republics through which every man in the state could become an acting member of the common government, transacting in person a great portion of its rights and duties, subordinate indeed, yet important and entirely within his competence. It was these little republics that would be the main strength of the great one." Phaeton, brethren. For inasmuch as the Republican government of the Union was based on the assumption that the scat of power was in the people, the very condition of its proper functioning lay in a scheme to divide government among the many, distributing to everyone exactly the functions he was competent to. The scat of power was in the people. Remember, friends, these are dark times. Never lose sight of the fact. that the scat of power is in the people. Anyways, that's so stupid. Okay. This is what happens when you actually read your books. You get that you find funny things like that. What are your PC specs? I am flattered that you think I would even know. They're nice ones. I paid a lot of money for them. I don't think it's a typo, more of a misprint. No, it's a typo. I mean, it's a typo. Like, it's the wrong letter. So, like, when this seems to be every edition of this. When it was committed to print, like, that was already part of the document. But I digress. So, this is the, oh, that's the wrong thing. I don't want to move that. This is the Revolution Will Not Be Live Streamed by Sisyphus55. Quite a big channel by the looks of it. It had 886,000 subscribers, and I haven't heard a single thing they have to say. Here we go. Philosophers have only interpreted the world in various ways. The point, however, is to change it. What's that from? Pop quiz. Everyone. Philosophers have only interpreted the world in various ways. The point, however, is to change it. Where is that written? Anyone. Quick. Got 5 seconds. Whoever gets it first wins. You don't win anything, but you win. Waiting for the delay so I know when to stop. Chat, what's it from? Don't disappoint me. My audience is smart. If I get this, you get this. Phil Sinforma wins. No, not Karl Marx. Obviously it's from Karl Marx, but what's it from? Thesis on Feuerbach. Good job. Thesis on Feuerbach. It's from Ayn Rand, obviously. Okay, let's go.
I don't think it's a stretch to state that there is a surplus of political content online. Debate bros, commentary channels, pretentious video essayists. It's an endless stream of chatter, engagement, and information.
Why is there a surplus? Oh, was that perspective philosophy? Actually, am I in here? Hang on. What if I'm in here? What if I am? Hang on.
Surplus of political content online. Debate.
Okay, that's Hassan. It's Ben
Debate bros, commentary channels.
Noah Sampson. That's Ben Shapiro's sister? We got a lot of Ben Shapiro here.
Channels, pretentious video essayists.
Krantic, I don't know who that is. This man just put a Sisyphus55 video on a story asking to comment on it in order to join the revolution. There's some bad blood there, clearly.
It's an endless stream of chatter, engagement.
Oh, I thought that was perspective philosophy for a second. I was confused. I thought it was like, oh, perspective philosophy's on here. Maybe, you never know.
Which is good, right? People should be informed.
So he's not even putting, like, really political content on here. He's putting, like... Is this not even political content? Like, he runs his mouth every so often, but I think he's largely just, like, a gamer. That's one of the frustrating things about him, is he clearly has no actual passion for politics.
People should discuss how to negotiate and manage power through the blind veil of...
Oh, that's not Ben Shapiro's sister? Everybody in that sphere looks the same for some reason. Just they all have the exact same aesthetic. It's hard to tell. They all look like Ben Shapiro with makeup on.
Spaces. And even if the means
Lauren Southern is just blonde Ben Shapiro.
Discourse is indirectly brought to you through billion-dollar companies that would very much like to preserve the status quo, surely we're just doing the best with what we have. You can't change...
I mean, you've noticed that, right? Like, right-wing women pundits, there's like, they all dress and look the exact same. Like, not exactly the same, but there's like... They all wear the same thing as Lauren Southern. It's... I don't know. I don't get it. I mean, I do, but it's like, yeah.
Change the system by working outside of it, right?
I confuse the coring with perspective philosophy. He looks kind of like him when you squint.
But is online politics in its current form really doing...
Exactly, they're all Ben Shapiro. Okay, we're going into territory. Yeah, no. No, we can't make that joke.
I'm going to argue no, or at least it isn't enough. I believe that a majority of political content online is at best promoting apathy and at worst actively playing into the systems that, at least on the left, it often criticizes. Despite
He's considered to be news and politics by Twitch and most of his viewers. He's won the Streamy News Award. Yeah, but the Streamy Awards are bullshit.
infinite digital attention given to the poly crisis, a cluster of related global risks with compounding effects, the radical reformations required to tackle these issues have not yet happened. The revolution will not be live streamed.
Except, just to be clear, if there was a revolution, it literally fucking would. It absolutely would be live streamed. That's how, like, we got our first info, for example, on the invasion of Ukraine. We had people live streaming it. We had people posting stuff to Twitter. It was through social media. So in actual fact, no, if there is an actual, like, concrete revolution involving people on the ground actually physically breaking down institutions and restructuring society, that's absolutely going to be covered on live streams and coordinated through live streams. Why on earth wouldn't they make use of this technology? Obviously they would. I don't think that's what he's getting at here, but, like, he's very proud of a title that is on its face false, you know? A video claiming that online content promotes apathy is just an attempt at irony. It's clever if it is, because it's literally encouraging apathy, because it doesn't... What's it going to tell you to do instead? Read philosophy? I mean, you should, but you should do both, ideally. Because here's the one thing the fascists and the Marxists both have in common. They both recognize that fetishizing philosophical learning and not putting it to use with respect to anything, that's a waste. Like, there's not a reward for, like, ingesting as many novels and philosophy books as possible if you never give anything back afterwards. At a certain point you die and you lose all of your information, so you need to, like, produce something.
This video is sponsored by Brilliant.
The revolution will not be live streamed. Brought to you. Like, come on.
The topic of trying to understand the world, personally, I can feel pretty lost when it comes to...
Oh no. It just clicked. Like, Brilliant in particular. Oh god. That's like... This is perverse. Okay, we'll see how this goes. I have a rough sense of where this goes already, which is why I'm reacting to this so soon. But, like, you're not gonna like encourage people to get off the internet, to read more, to get more serious about understanding praxis or whatever, and, like, reading theory and things like that, and then encourage them to go online to take a shortcut to learning. Come on.
Trying to get a
grasp. As a part of your sponsorship. Like, put the HelloFresh ad here or something, not this.
On many topics you see discussed online. AI, coding, and data analysis rule the ways in which we interpret and consume information. These topics do sound complicated, but thankfully there's an easy way to learn about them.
Exactly. The revolution will not be live streamed. Sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends.
In order to stay informed.
A realistic anime RPG with full voice acting.
Brilliant is by far the best way to learn math, data science, and computer science interactively. This is largely due to its...
This is the best way. I've compared them.
Interactive.
This is a math channel.
And fun lessons that go over both basic...
Is this a math channel? Hang on. Gender identity, transitioning, and activism. Dating advice. Book club. Morning coffee. I like coffee. Essays. For her, apparently. Nietzsche, the man who vibe-checked God. This is a math channel. Checks out.
And data analysis level, Brilliant customizes content to fit your needs and lets you solve at your own pace. This is how...
It rubs me the wrong way, the same way ground news ads do, where it's like, you can use this tool to stay informed on both sides of the issues, etc. That one offends me less, because ground news is literally just advertising, like, hey, we condense, like, a hodgepodge of articles from a diverse array of sources in one spot for you in one place. Like, that's... I can see the practical use of this. What I don't like is people pretending like, oh yeah, no, I've used this tool. This is how I got as smart as I am. Pay for this. Sponsoring the show, by the way, but, like, it's brilliant. I've tested it. It's like, no, you haven't. That's a lie. You are lying to me right now. Now that we've established that our guest here, Sisyphus55, is willing to lie to us, let's hear about his prescriptions for making the revolution really happen.
Kurzgesagt on YouTube in general.
Back to the video. Okay.
He ain't just fly. He's super fly.
This music is absolutely going to get this copyright striked anyways, but Eudemonia's copyright music is better.
Online politics offers a false sense of action and may actively hinder real-world progress.
How?
This is evident in 3 common characteristics found across online politics. Here I'll define online politics as the content generated by influencers, content creators, and talking heads who people usually go to for infotainment on local and global issues.
Why would you characterize online politics as the content? Why wouldn't online politics simply be politics that is carried through online? Like, that's often not done through content. That's often frequently done through, like, discussion. Or if not discussion, like, on things like Twitter, for example. Tweets make waves. They matter. Once again, we got our some of our first information about the invasion of Ukraine through tweets. Online politics is just politics through the medium of the internet. There's not actually a sharp distinction between online politics and real politics. Everybody uses the internet. That's like saying there's a difference between politics and written politics. It's like if somebody writes a political pamphlet and that has influence, that's politics, my dude. It's not the content. It's the domain of activity, which extends to the online space.
Firstly, as evident in the sponsored segment you just watched, content and journalism in general is in itself reliant on and usually exists for engagement that can then be transformed into capital.
Okay. This is like one of those things where movies will make a meta acknowledgement of how bad a trope is that they've just deployed. That doesn't make it better. Self-awareness itself, ironic self-awareness, is a trope. You haven't transcended that.
In a general trend, this has led to news deserts. Communities that are not seen as profitable will lose their local source of news. This disproportionately impacts poorer areas who do not turn out the same profit as wealthier areas. People in news deserts will then often turn to social media to get their news, which is often more general, polarizing, and opinionated. This in turn increases the odds of those in news deserts making misinformed political decisions and ending up in filter bubbles. And this is how ended up on the walls of the Capitol.
Birdbrain says, I would add, though, that terminally online politics, quote-unquote, is worlds apart from the median voter or other citizens of a state. I wouldn't go that far, but I would say that perhaps one thing that the internet provides is a bunch of easy Kafka traps for people to fall into and to become sort of obsessively caught in, so they never actually get involved in productive political activity. For God's sake, I was up to like 3 a.m. last night arguing with a bunch of trans-medicalist gatekeepers, and it was hell, and it accomplished nothing. Why was I doing it? It wasted time. It felt good. We beat them, god damn it, but did we really? It seems like we're actually the ones who lost in the end. They just censor poop? What?
And this is how ended up on the walls of the Capitol.
They did, coward.
But what specifically makes social media so bad for politics? Let's turn to the progressive left, where you'd hope there's a greater chance for progress. Chat donations, Patreon support, AdSense, influencers need to weigh the extent to which a potential topic is important enough to give attention to versus the extent to which it is juicy and entertaining, thereby driving traffic and revenue. Naturally, most content will gravitate towards the latter. However, political influencers tend to actually settle on a middle ground, a form of politics that appears to be fighting the good fight in an entertaining manner. This middle ground, called deference politics, focuses on conversational power and attention over fixing material disparities. The concern here is usually rested on avoiding complicity in injustice and policing or denouncing certain social behaviors. Now, deference politics is not in itself bad. It prioritizes traumatic experiences above all else as that which should be tackled and given attention to. The issue, however, is that these discussions remain quite insular. They don't go far enough. As Olufemi Otaiwo, the author of Elite Capture, beautifully puts, bad roommates aren't the problem, for the same reason that being a good roommate isn't the solution. The problem is that we are still trapped in the same room. Someone says something edgy, another calls them out on Twitter, a response video is made, the other person reacts to the video, a third person jumps in to support their fellow influencer. A severe amount of hours, resources, and attention has been given to determining whether this particular roommate should be tolerated. The world has not changed because of this, but your favorite streamer or video essayist, and maybe their opponent, is now a little wealthier. If we back up, what does this do? It directs what little attentional power we can control at symbolic sites of power, rather than at the root political issues that explain why everything is so effed up. This is an important...
Really? Hey, there's an assumption baked into here that hasn't been justified. It directs what little attentional power we can control. You can't control that attentional power. That attentional power only exists as a consequence of the medium, as a consequence of these particular figures. This is not a resource that you had that is being expended frivolously. This is a resource that was generated. If it is a resource at all. I'm dubious about that. It's not clear to me that the bare fact that you've generated a bunch of attention means that therefore you have in any way touched upon some actually like motivatable body of actors. I actually disagree with this in more ways than one. I think leftists should try and be more content oriented to attract normies. I agree with that. This is why I try to do a mix. I try to bring them in with the drama and keep them with the theory kind of thing. One of my strategies recently has been with the theory bar here, because this makes it like financially viable to do the theory that people like. But on the way there, I'm doing the stuff that gets attention. So it seems to have been successful so far, and I wish more people would do that, because like I have nothing but respect for the people who have these like chill little book clubs where they talk about shelling and whatnot for hours on end. But they have no growth potential, which is fine. You're able to use a medium for other ends besides politics or besides growing a channel for profit or whatever. But if your goal is to be politically efficacious and you're devoting your time to doing so on YouTube, there are compromises with the medium that you have to make. And it's like...
This is an important point. Whether this orgy of online drama is deliberate or not at the level of influencers, it really helps.
Of course it's deliberate. That's what makes them money. If there's drama, they jump on it, and they'd be stupid not to do so. Money is what keeps the wheels turning. These people can only afford to sit on their asses watching this stuff for 8 hours a day because of money. If they stop doing that and they start doing stuff like what I do, like before the theory meter thing, which once again I'm very surprised that works so well, but like, oh, we're going to talk about Hegel today for 4 hours. Like 90% of people aren't going to be down for that. You have to make it interesting. You have to tell people why it's interesting. We were all normies at one point. Something happened to us that made us interested in this stuff. We need to trigger an interest in things. And we can't do that if people are so bored by our presentation. And I understand the irony of me, of all people, saying this, that nobody approaches us at all. Like, that's a thing we have to do. And sometimes drama's fun. I don't like most of it, but sometimes, like, you know, it gives you some opportunity to sleuth a little bit. It can be kind of interesting. Like and there's degrees of it too. Like, not everything is drama. So, like, sometimes there are new stuff that seems like it associates with some things that are kind of trashy, like the Illuminati fiasco. But that's not drama. That's unpacking a relationship, a business relationship that is highly abusive and highly intricate and highly interesting from both a legal and ethical standpoint, and highly emotionally charged as well. Like, there's an intensity about it. That's not necessarily talking about, did XQC sleep with so-and-so? Like, who cares about that? That stuff I won't even touch. But, you know, like, it's not simply the case that if you're not only doing theory, or you're not only, like, organizing direct action, that therefore it's all useless. Like, you want your revolutionaries to be miserable and bored? No. You're not going to have any revolutionaries if that's what you do. You need to have, like, some kind of draw. By the way, you're not going to get revolutionaries through YouTube. Not at all. Give it up. There's not a capacity here to do so, which makes this entire video meaningless, because it's telling us, like, it's not that the revolution will not be live streamed, it's that the revolution will not be triggered by the act of streaming, which is obvious. This is a business. But then what are you saying? The audiences would not exist were it not for the medium and for the people who are making these channels run through the medium. They're not diverting attention away. That attention wasn't focused anywhere before. It's
helps to maintain the status quo. This is elite capture, defined as the way socially advantaged people tend to gain control over resources meant for others. Elite capture often cleverly adapts to resistance by incorporating a tolerable level of it. For example, Amazon can buy up Twitch and host leftist streamers. These creators, reliant on the attention economy of their platforms, are then somewhat limited in advocating
See, I'm better than these people. I don't stream on Twitch.
for radical action, since this could hurt them financially. This isn't to blame
By the way, do you think Google is pro-leftist? Like, dear God.
influencers necessarily. They may be actively doing their best within the system. However, as Taiwo notes, the game objective may be viscerally and irreducibly personal for each player, self-esteem, security, life itself, but the rules and the context that determine which actions make sense have been created by others who benefit from the outcome of those rigged systems.
Okay, what he's talking about is real, and he's describing it adequately. The problem is that this entire analysis rests upon the false presumption that this represents a diverting of resources that we already had. It does not. We did not have. The audiences are not discrete populations. The people who watch me are people who hate me as much as people who like me, as much as people who are just here for the chat. It is not the case that I am stealing, for example, people away from the revolutionary action they would be engaging in if I didn't stream. If I didn't stream, I, like you, would be watching TV or doing work. That's what would happen. I'd probably be reading and drinking too much, but, like, you get the idea. The statement here is fine. This happens. But when we're talking about a media space, it's not just that the revolution isn't real, it's that the resources that you think are being falsely deployed towards non-revolutionary diversions, that's also not real. There is no resource. There is no revolutionary body that is being misdirected. There's nothing here. You're ranting at people for looking at a newspaper and reading the comics section. That's what this is.
Elite capture destroys democracy by subtly capturing the political realm for the elites while maintaining an illusion of choice. And even in non-traditional spaces
Also, Vosh doesn't stream on Twitch and doesn't take... I know he doesn't take sponsors, but I thought he did stream on Twitch, didn't he? I know he has in the past. Maybe he stopped recently.
of political action, elite capture works its magic. This is assisted through the third trait of online politics, the abstraction and intellectualization of reality.
Hang on. What? Say it again.
Even in non-traditional spaces of political action, elite capture works its magic. This is assisted through the third trait of online politics, the abstraction and intellectualization of reality.
Who's calling me? No, Mom, I'm not answering the phone right now. I'm at work. Being a big boy, making money. The abstraction... What do you mean, because they're talking about it? Look, I don't know if you're much of a Vosh viewer, or a Hassan viewer for that matter. They aren't all that abstract. That's not their... Those aren't the waters in which they swim. Ugh. Didn't Vush get banned? He got banned for saying crack. I thought Hassan got banned for saying crack. I didn't know Vosh did.
He ain't just fly. He's super fly.
Baudrillard predicted a world where our media-saturated minds, chronically drifting between flashy events and images, will be in such a comatose of fascination that the very concept of meaning will be lost. Meaning, after all, depends on stability and fixed structures. We are now in the habit of perceiving reality in terms of attraction and surprise. As information hunters, we are becoming blind to still inconspicuous things, to what is common, the incidental, and the customary, the things that do not attract us but ground us in being, writes Byung-Chul Han. Namely, this digital world of non-things prioritizes information over truth. Whereas truth is stable and durable, information is unstable and evades the ability for us to linger on it, to truly process and reflect. This is evident in how much of online political activity appears to be more about playing than acting. Whereas action breaks with the present and brings something new, play does not interfere with the present. Action involves resistance, whereas play resists real resistance. Why does this happen online? Well, there's a real difference between...
Why are you just declaring that? Play can absolutely be a form of resistance itself as well. This has happened in the past. I mean, literal plays, as a matter of fact. I don't know. I don't know. Why would you assume this? Byung-Chul Han is interesting. I've read, I have one of his books. I read it a little while ago. I actually have it right here, oddly enough. Saving Beauty. And he's interesting. He's full of interesting ideas, but he's kind of like Lewis Mumford in a way. In that he's full of really interesting ideas that are fruitful, you can make use of in interesting ways. But he just kind of gives them. He doesn't justify them very strongly. And he doesn't argue his points particularly well. I'm not, to be honest, a massive fan. But that's beside the point. Because I also read him when I was substantially less philosophically read, I would say. And what I'm immediately running into here as my principal issue is I don't know who his audience is, and I don't know what he expects them to do. Because if he's trying to tell a general audience that your revolutionary capacity is being diverted, don't start citing Byung-Chul Han. Tell them straight up. Because here's the argument, okay? If you want to do something useful with your life, you cannot be sitting there in Vosh's chat, or Hassan's chat, or Destiny's chat, or whoever, waiting for hours on end, typing, getting that little dopamine hit whenever somebody mentions your name, or if the streamer says your name, oh my god, yeah, that's true. Go outside, go do something. Even if it's just like working a job, making money, sending some of that money to whoever, like, that's a thing you could do with your time. It'd be more fulfilling. You could go on a hike. You'd be a more patient, stronger, more healthy individual. You probably learn more. That's a thing you can do. Great. I 100% agree. But you're trying to puff this up. You're trying to make some deep philosophical point. There's no deep philosophical point here. There's no resources being diverted. This is a black hole. Like, well, I don't know. Like, see, what would have made sense is like, hey, just a reminder, guys. YouTube's fun and all, but at the end of the day, it is just entertainment. If you want to get involved in something real, here's some organizations local to you that you can join. Here's some things that you can start doing to get educated on the social issues of the day, on revolutionary political philosophy, to sort of understand why we need to change things at all. Something like that. You know? I wasn't on when DM covered this, but I think Doe came in and brought up a Gomba in response to this workplay distinction. We want to ask about it. Yeah. I mean, Aristotle makes a workplay distinction, so.
Knowing that the stove can burn you when you touch it versus actually experiencing the burn of the stove. Where the former is theory, the latter prompts immediate action.
But if Doe wants to come on, I'd be happy
from
to
the
talk to
stove. Online spaces give us information at the loss of truth. There, we don't experience truth, but rather information. We know of a war in Ukraine. the climate crisis, and police brutality, but many of us don't know it truly.
What do you mean, know it truly? You mean get at the thing itself? What does that mean, know it truly? What does that mean?
Truth prompts action.
Not necessarily. Truth can be alien to action. Truth can be something that's deflating. Like, it may be the truth, for example, that there is no actual capacity for the proletariat to rise up and create a system of equality for all. That's a possibility. That is a thing that may be true. We don't know. All we do know is it hasn't happened yet, and there have been a lot of people who've been trying for a long time. And I'm not talking at the level of the Soviet Union, because I don't count that as that necessarily. I mean, like, it seems to be like a deeply intractable problem, or an unachievable task. Why would you assume that you have such a grasp of truth that you know what truth will do? That's silly.
This would explain why minorities are far more likely to engage in activism than the melanin deficient.
No, they're more likely to engage in activism because they are more heavily targeted and more immediately victimized by the prevailing systems, which were largely predicated upon things like racial inequality and sexism and heteronormativity, etc., etc. That is, it is not. That is not because they have greater access to truth. That's because they are more immediate victims of events and of the system as a whole.
Whereas white people can earnestly sympathize with the...
His analogy betrays the problem in his logic. I don't want to have to make people touch the stove to realize it's hot and will hurt them. It's just a lionization of suffering. I mean, sure. But I mean, it's treating like... It's actually a little bit dumber than that. He's treating the touching of the stove as if that gains you more scientific access to the concept of heat. But it actually doesn't, because in actual fact, like from the eye of the universe, heat does not mean pain. You need heat to survive. Without extreme heat, there wouldn't be life on this planet. Heat is like extreme, even extreme heat, what we call extreme heat, that's relative to what our bodies can withstand in their present form. There's no reason to think that there is some special truth value in the hot stove hurting us, right? There are people with nerve disorders. They can't feel the hot stove burning them. They don't have more access to truth because they burn on the hot stove.
Information of, for example, police brutality, they do not experience the painful lived truth of experiencing persecution based on the color of their skin. There is still a knowledge rift, concealed by information that limits any sense of urgency, and therefore action. This line of thinking has evidently led to the playfulness associated with deference politics, where majority groups strongly advocate and platform visible minorities. This form of coalition politics, while important in valuing the knowledge embedded in lived traumatic experiences, isn't enough if we wish to prompt real action, even if those platforming may feel like they're doing more than enough. In short, online politics has brought us poorly informed voters, the capture of activism by elites, and a false sense of action.
How do you know that? You'd have to compare things, right? You'd have to say, well, you'd have to compare them to how informed would they be without this medium? I don't have the data for that. I don't think anybody has the data for that. How would you have determined this? I suspect we probably have more informed voters that are still like more in an echo chamber as a consequence of the online space. It's probably like a little bit of bad, a little bit of good. Probably a lot of both, actually. Voter apathy? I don't know if that's true. How on what basis? It seems like we're kind of wired politically. Let's see here. Yeah.
Thank you for watching.
Oh, thank God it's over.
Of course, I'm not going to leave it at that.
Oh. But why?
How can we actually change things? Firstly, we need to move past the idea that this current system of online discourse is constructive. Consuming and supporting content that supports our political bent can give us a false sense of progress. At the end of the day, it is theoretical progress.
No, it's not theoretical progress, it's just intellectual progress. It's not even progress, it's just... Why would you even assume it's progress? Maybe you just like the idea of somebody who has a good message and a good manner of delivering it. And maybe like the capacity to, you know, knock down a few charlatans. Maybe you just like the idea of them getting a boost. Maybe you like the idea of promoting them. Maybe that actually does affect things in a positive way, even if in a way that's very difficult to track. I rather suspect that's the case. There's a reason why most of the Republican candidates recently have been these ideological brawler types like Vivek.
Spirit of rebellion can exist only in a society where a theoretical equality conceals great factual
I like this part the best? Okay, I'll try to be fair.
inequalities, writes Camus. Namely, the true rebellion against current things will only occur when we collectively recognize that deference politics online is in some sense sapping much of our attention from more damaging injustices. Me babbling on about Jordan Peterson does not solve these factual inequalities.
No, but you might open the eyes of somebody who may at some level down the line, at some point down the line, actually have an influence on somebody else. You may convince them that Jordan Peterson's gloss on somebody else was probably ill-founded, or Jordan Peterson's assumptions about something that you took for granted because they were spoken in a compelling way when you heard them. They aren't that compelling, in fact, when you know what you're talking about. And maybe that person will like have a definite impact on somebody else's decisions, and maybe that person will grow up to do something important. Like we're fundamentally talking about like a kind of anarchic, half brain dead classroom 90% of the time, in which every single content creator is a Jordan Peterson type who's getting by on charisma alone. I hope I don't. I'm definitely not getting by on charisma, but like that's the sort of relationship you have with your viewership. It's not, your viewership is not a body of people like a corporation or a demographic that you're organizing. I can't organize you. Destiny can barely organize his audience. He pulls like a % of a % when he tries to do canvassing, which I mean it's more than I could probably drum up, but like it's not a lot. The political power of the strongest people in the space is nothing. So YouTube is not the site of political action at all. It's not diverting political action. It has nothing to do with it. YouTube is Twitter. It's Twitter in motion. It's a place where people talk. That's it.
From this, we need to transition from the abstract.
Yeah, I know, right? Serious God, how does he not see this? If babbling on about Jordan Peterson doesn't change anything, then why is babbling on about the babblers about Jordan Peterson changing it? Yeah, exactly. Like what he's just done is he's demonstrated the futility, or he's argued rather for the futility of his own position. Which I mean, I agree with at some level. Like you're not going to sway an electorate with YouTube, but it's possible that people will actually shift positions through YouTube over time. Slowly. Like, here's the thing, like, I don't know. Like, it's possible not a single person who has actually, like, run a channel has actually convinced anybody of anything, but I'm pretty sure it has happened, and I'm pretty sure that people have changed their votes as a consequence of stuff they have heard and stuff they have followed here. Because the alternative is saying, well, people don't change as a result of intellectual stimulation at all. Because a lot of the content, a lot of the political content, a lot of it's trash, but a lot of it is actually like people making serious arguments. And what's the thesis here? That arguments don't matter? If they don't, why are you bothering to argue it?
Abstraction of information to the concreteness of truth. Theory is important, conversations are important, and there's a multitude of useful Twitter threads and genuinely insightful videos and live streams that have helped me informing.
What am I looking at here? Genuinely insightful live streams of videos. You showed Dr. K and Destiny talking about how I just really don't give a shit about animals. I don't give a fuck about other people. That is our social contract. With like this, like you're showing a grifter, my dude. You're not selling yourself as like this serious intellectual here.
My views, but
Son listed as top donor funding the Amazon labor. Okay, well, that's cool.
it's still mostly theory. There will still be lead in our water unless we do something about the pipes. A necessary push through both tangible.
Okay, well, I didn't know about the lead in your water till you said that. Now I'm concerned about lead in the water because of this video on YouTube. I'm gonna go look into whether or not our pipes are still made of lead. Boom! You impetus for change from YouTube. Immediately.
Experience in the real world outside of digital spaces, as well as through a lingering interaction with art that is born out of a genuine experience of suffering.
What the fuck are you talking? What did that even mean?
A push through both tangible.
What the hell did he say?
But it's still mostly theory. There will still be lead in our water unless we do something about the pipes. A necessary push through both tangible experience in the real world outside of digital spaces, as well as through a lingering interaction with art that is born out of a genuine experience of suffering, can help this process.
That was not a coherent sentence. He didn't say anything just now.
This is where we encounter truth.
What, in suffering? What? Why would you think so? Suffering is an affect like every other. Why on earth would you think it gives you special access to truth? That's silly.
We need to know in our hearts, and not just abstractly, that we are bonded by suffering, and revolt is heroic defiance to whatever oppresses us.
But what if you're not bonded by... I'm not bonded by suffering with a lot of people. I'm bonded by common interests with a lot of people. I'm bonded by an appreciation for bad webcams and bookshelves. Like, that's not suffering. I'm quite happy with those things. Where's this coming from? You can't just say this.
What does this look like exactly? In psychoanalysis, our encounter with suffering...
By this definition, Destiny and Brianna Wu are real leftist practitioners. Well, they definitely cause suffering.
And the need for change often comes in four forms. Firstly, there is the withdrawal of the self from reality, in which we numb ourselves to the truth through dissociation. Secondly, we may engage in some sort of divinity, believing ourselves to be closely aligned with something larger and spiritual. Thirdly, we may renounce ourselves in the service of historical necessity, soullessly sacrificing our subjectivity to a revolutionary cause that we believe is guaranteed to bring salvation. And fourthly, we may simply destroy everything, including ourselves, out of a sort of surrender to nihilism. The first two, dissociation and spiritualism,
I would so much rather just play Disco Elysium right now.
Tend to sustain the status quo through inaction. The third, turning oneself into an instrument for a cause, is often too fraught with grand statements on human nature, society, and the future to guarantee that such a sacrifice will pay off. The final one, while certainly a form of action in terms of destruction, is also really just rage quitting. The simple fact is we don't know how this will all end. Why give up? Why add to the suffering?
He ain't just fly. He's super.
What are you talking about? What is he... Oh.
There is another form of pushing for change, Lacan's subjective destitution. Although all previous examples deal with
This guy read Lacan, and he was just so excited he had to make a video about him. That's what this is. You just had to shoehorn Lacan, I almost said Hassan, Lacan in.
some form of removing our personhood through grand claims or
The revolution will begin with a 60-second sponsorship from Brilliant, exactly.
subjective destitution does so out of a sincere and humble attempt at changing for the better. As engaged subjects, we have to act with a
Here, you know what YouTube does? I get to spend my entire workday reading Hegel and talking about it and making videos about intellectual stuff that people wish existed, instead of spending my entire life digging holes in the dirt and the rain. Okay? That's fantastic. That's great. This is actually an avenue where working class people who want to do something other than labor can actually do that. I mean, it's all labor, but like you want to do something other than like menial labor can actually do it, and that can actually be productive as a result. You're not just dependent upon the approval of gatekeepers and universities or whatever. You can actually do stuff. And that has its downsides too. There are a lot of cranks that get through the cracks, but like, this is great. I'm politically useless without this. This is critical. I'm philosophically useless without this. Like, there are a lot of people who are. A lot of people who are really good at what they do. Like, hey, how about this? Why not, instead of a pretentious video about how the revolution will not be live streamed, as if anyone's actually banking on YouTube being revolutionary, why not say, like, hey guys, I know you're having a lot of fun sort of chasing these large channels. Why not give some support to some smaller ones that are trying to do stuff that's really interesting, as opposed to just all copying each other? Like, that'd be interesting. And then give us suggestions. And use your own vast channel to promote them, to promote more serious people, instead of just shilling for yourself. Like, I'm not seeing any way forward here to do something useful. I'm seeing some pretentious asshole talking about how we aren't engaging enough with the raw suffering intrinsic to the human condition to get at cosmic truth. You haven't gotten at cosmic truth. You're still reading basic bitch stuff like Camus.
view to the future, but
Sorry, Camus. Camus' decent, okay? Camus is fun to read, and he's interesting. His novels are good.
for a priori reason,
Although Hakim hates him. Although maybe that's a mark in his favor.
we cannot base our decisions
Although not, because he hates him because he writes from a specifically colonial standpoint, but I digress.
on a rational pattern of historical progress, so we have to improvise and take risks. One example of subjective destitution does not come from the bourgeois
To be fair, the video was prime streamer bait 100%. Well, that's why I said, like, this is literally just the obligatory anti-Vosh video, biannual anti-Vosh video 2023, the second one. First we had the Soul Bunny video, and now we got this, and that's all it is. Got Vosh and Hassan on the cover. Boom. Bank. I should do that one of these days. Some of my earliest, best videos were critiques of Vosh.
bourgeoisie or those with the time to chart a
Hear that, Vosh? I'm coming for you. Don't take it personally, it's just business.
seemingly nuanced revolutionary course. Nope, it is actually reflected in healthcare workers during the pandemic. Without any guarantee that their actions would help in the end, without much help or guidance, and many times without any sense of hope, these workers improvised with what they had in order to deal with what was in front of them. They could not deny the truth of suffering. They acted out of urgency. On a personal level, we need to adapt this sort of selflessness and humility that confronts the present without any claims on the future, to take things one day at a time. This is the sort of constructive politics that Taiwo suggests as an alternative to deference politics. Constructive politics is the pursuit of specific goals rather than focusing on complicity in injustice. It involves multitasking, tearing down, and building up. Instead of playing whack-a-mole with injustice or redecorating our prison walls, we need to break these walls and build a better world. In terms of online spaces, this means the channeling of attentional resources to situations that can be improved. As he notes, information networks aid effective political action and can constrain the system's violence. Rather than compulsively monitoring the internal politics of BreadTube or Twitch or your own Discord server, it is up to those with influence, including myself, to actually adapt this approach and channel our limited energy and attention to specific goals in the real world. This does not mean the end of theory or discourse. We need these...
One moment. My mother is calling me. Hello there, anonymous person sitting on the couch. With your earphones in, who cannot hear me. Hello? I am a little bit incapacitated. Mother is outside with bacon pull-aparts and some pizzas. Can you grab them for me? You're an angel. Thank you. My apologies, as we were.
Discussions, pessimism of the intellect, and optimism of the will. I look to someone like B.R. Ambedkar, a famous Indian politician.
Well, it's a good thing that Vosh funnels so much money to progressive victory, isn't it? Yeah, like, these audiences are not a resource. They were not an otherwise revolutionary movement that Twitch streamers and so on and so forth arrested. They're just viewers. All that's happened is there's been a democratization of television media. That's what this is. You can even watch this on the TV now. Most TVs have a YouTube app. And they actually direct people into canvassing. Or they spread good ideas sometimes. Often bad ideas. Like, the right wing's been more effective at gaming it. Absolutely. But what's the argument here, then? This is working for our enemies. Why would you not want to use it against them? It's just pretentious. I'm not going to take the call on stream. I'm not calling on stream. God, no.
Involved in
My mother still doesn't understand what I do for a living.
drafting the Constitution. As a good example, Ambedkar had studied
My mother is lovely, and also a nightmare, but also lovely.
under John Dewey, a philosopher under the school of pragmatism. Despite the constant theoretical squabbling inherent
She had a very rough life, but goddamn was she committed.
in pragmatist thought, Ambedkar nonetheless took certain principles that he had learned under Dewey, such as nurturing human personality and a skepticism of supposedly timeless values, and he applied them to battle against the caste system in India. Being an untouchable himself, Ambedkar was applying theory to tear down by criticizing the caste system and build up through drafting a new constitution, a movement against an injustice, a tangible and concrete truth he found to be deeply personal. Another example can also be seen in Camus' conclusion of The Rebel, where his endorsement of trade unionism reflects the sort of concreteness that constructive politics requires.
Bad son, you didn't interrupt the stream to call your mom back immediately. You're right. One moment. All right.
Far from being a form of romanticism, rebellion takes the part of true realism. So what was the point of this video? Firstly, this wasn't an attack against streamers or other online personalities.
Yeah, it was. You put Vosh and his son on the cover. Why would you do that if it wasn't an attack on them? That's how you're making your money. You'd be stupid not to do that.
I think me specifically telling other people what to do with their platform would be a little entitled. And also,
That's what you did.
as I said before, many of the people mentioned have participated in charities and activism. This is actually more of a video addressed directly to the viewer and the general audience.
Then why are you making it a sponsored video? Why are you lying to them and telling them that, yeah, use Brilliant, guys. I use this. This is how I know everything that I know. I would not be able to tie my shoes in the morning were it not for Brilliant. And by the way, if you put my channel name into your login thing, whatever, when you subscribe, you'll get 20% off. Like, I'm sorry, give me a break.
I think if you feel hopeless about the world, you should
And put a shirt on. You got like close to 1 million subscribers, okay? I can afford to dress well.
probably start rethinking your relationship with online content. You know, make changes however you can and in whatever way it suits your personality. I think everybody has some sort of tool, privilege, or trait that can make the world a better place. And if everyone did what was supposedly insufficient, I'd like to think that it would eventually become sufficient in some way. So it's about kind of, you know, suiting the action to your own, like, who you are. For me specifically, I don't really think I'm that great of like an orator in front of a lot of people. I get really anxious at protests, and I'm not great with coordinating events. However, I do have an interest in psychology and philosophy, and
Stick to that, okay? Just stick to philosophy and psychology. I'm not going to say that's your forte, but it seems like you have more of a passion for that than politics, because like this was rambling. Like you were drawing on every single thing you knew. It made no sense. This video made no sense. It was insanely pretentious. This kills me because, like, you know what people like this need to do? Look, 100,000 subscribers, okay? You could do stuff that you know. You could make videos about stuff that you could make casual videos, and they'll make you money. They'll keep your channel afloat. And in the meantime, actually learn up. Actually, like, educate yourself so you are good at orating. That's a skill you can develop. You're not bad at orating. You have a voice. You're capable of writing and speaking in a clear fashion. It's only your desire to seem intelligent that's been a hindrance so far. You could do, like, something actually useful instead of this, which only benefits you cynically. Like, nobody's buying this.
I also have this channel, which is pretty much a megaphone. I can hold up to hundreds of thousands of people in making...
Also, why do you have a Canada flag on your thing? Why are you accusing people of not being leftist, but you have a giant Canada flag, like the colonial state par excellence? Like, what? Why? I don't care if you have a Canada flag, but like, why would you centerpiece that in your video? Like the revolution will not be
In this video, I kind of wondered how I could use this specific tool for some sort of change.
If I had 100k subscribers, you would see me exactly 12 times a year, and it would be the best goddamn video essays you've ever seen. Oh my god. I would spend all of my time just making these things fantastic. It would be a dissertation every month.
How can I responsibly direct attention towards issues that need action? You know, one of my favorite cheesy quotes is, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, the second best time is now. So that's why I'm going to start a bi-weekly stream / podcast called Planted, where we ask you a specific question, namely, if you had an audience of this size.
So let me see if I get this straight. The thesis of your video is that political streamers are diverting attention away from real politics. And at the conclusion of this video, in which your thesis is that political streamers are diverting attention away from real politics, you were advertising your political stream. What are you doing, my man? You know, see, the real problem with online politics is that they aren't subscribed to me.
What sort of specific issue would you want attention to be directed to?
Alright, this is a commercial. I'm going to send you all somewhere else. I think Daedalus is still streaming. We'll see. They're actually doing a history stream right now. They're looking at the the current event stream. They're looking at the Armenian issue, which is something I'm woefully undereducated on. I'm going to send you there. Are they still alive? Oh, they might be done now. Oh, I hope they're not done now. If they are, that would suck. Upcoming. Oh, looks like we're too late. Okay. Demon Mom's not up tonight, is she? Nope. How about... Vosh? Is Vosh live? Nope. Lucy. I think she was playing that house game earlier. Nope, she's done too by the look of it. Who do I send you to? Is Riverboat Jack? Maybe. Nope. No dice. Okay, guys, help me out here. Which lefty streamers can I send you to? Or which good streamers can I send you to? I don't have to be lefty. But just good ones. Help me out here. Let's figure this out. I've sent you to food shops like twice already. I don't want to do that again. Who's live? Anyone? Is everybody just retired? Am I the only buddy who streams? I'm the only person who streams anymore. Oh, Poppy. Or how about them? Oh well. I guess we know who it is then. I'm sorry. Let's see. Is anybody suggesting somebody in the chat? Let me see. It's Sunday night, they're all in bed, cowards. Send us to somebody who has good, unique content who is small. Let me figure that out. The problem is most of them don't stream. So let's say here, if I go onto YouTube, who's live right now? Who's on my recommends? There's nobody, unfortunately. Nobody's live. So, alas, I'm sending you to tomfoolery yet again. Tell him Sunday sent you.